I used to not believe in astrology, and now here's why I do. I sat down with world-class therapist and astrologer Debra Silverman for her signature 4E session before we podcasted to now what has become over 500,000 people. And within minutes, she clarified the exact patterns that have haunted my love and business life for years. What will the 4E show you, and what does astrology show you about shifting your blocks and breakthroughs? Let's see how in this episode of the Wellness and Wisdom Podcast, Liberated Life Series. So what if somebody could read your soul like a map and show you the blind spots that have been quietly running your life? Would you listen? Well, Carl Jung said, astrology represents the summation of all the psychological knowledge of antiquity. Now, if it's coming from Carl Jung, you know that there's some truth to it. If you go deep into the episode that's linked on the screen right now with Debra Silverman, you will know that astrology has science woven into its core. This is not woo-woo. I mean, it actually is woo-woo, but the coolest part about it is that it's woo-woo and it's mixed with reality of science. For years, I hit the same subtle and sometimes really major blocks in love and business. I thought it was strategy, but it was actually blind spot patterns I didn't know I had. And so this 4-element framework, this earth, this wind, this water, this fire, the way that Debra guided myself and my fiance, Carrie Michelle, was profound. We're still integrating it. We are literally still integrating it. What is the 4E process and how does it relate to you and your astrological path? It's on the screen right now. Fire, drive versus burnout. Earth, stability versus control. Air, thoughts versus overthinking, and water, sensitivity versus suppression. Check out this clip of Debra giving me a unique coaching point right here, right now.
You have an easier chart. There's an energy, your effortless grand trine and fire you have. You have this amazing access to being a full moon in Scorpio, deep. So you came with an easier track. At the same time, whether it's easy or hard, there's always the free will button. Will I choose to wake up inside the dream? Easier for the people that aren't challenged. Just to say, the hard charts are better because they instigate. They create enough tension. The easier charts take discipline, and that's the sign of an old soul.
All right, so you just saw 30 seconds of Debra working with me with her 4E process. Let's go into my Earth. I'm a Taurus, and my Earth energy is grounded, loyal, and steady until it turns into over-control and perfectionism. This is real for me. My Earth is very stable, but I have a shadow side. Just like she talks about in her book that's on the screen right now, I don't believe in astrology. Of course, I went right to my section in there. And what I learned most about astrology is that astrology is a map and a guidepost to understand who I am in the cosmos. Much like human design or Enneagram or any of these aspects of traditional self-narrative or self-understanding, astrology takes it to the next level. I was born at a certain time on Earth in a certain place when the stars were in a certain position. That informs the way that I behave based on repeated factors, repeated patterns that are not just special to me. It's everyone that's special to them when they're born. When you take your astrological map, and Debra's really amazing at doing this, and you apply her knowledge of the earth, the air, the fire, and the water, you will start to get profound understandings of yourself. Now, can you do the 4E process alone? No, you can't. But why is this so special? It's because in me sharing the little piece of what I'm going to share today, it's going to allow you to not only listen to the full podcast with Debra, but to explore looking at how these elements overlaid on top of your astrology can transform your behavior. And I'll spoil it for you. She told me this on the podcast. Astrology is a Trojan horse. Astrology is literally just an excuse for you to do deep work, to know yourself, and to expand your own consciousness. Because when you expand your own consciousness, the entire collective consciousness expands. Then where do we live? We live on Earth. So let's go back to my Earth. When I'm stable and when I'm controlling are two different things. When I'm controlling, it looks like perfectionism. I have to have the perfect thumbnail on this video. I have to talk to you in the perfect way. I have to show up perfectly in the way that I look for the world. It's actually just fear. When I'm not stable in my Earth, I am in fear. So what is my practice for Earth? My practice for Earth is to understand my astrological sign and how it relates to my everyday behaviors, but it's to identify when I'm in control. This is really big. Can we identify when we're in hyper control and perfectionism? Because essentially perfectionism is just fear wearing a jacket. What is perfectionism? How does it relate to Earth in the 4E process? That's for you to decide for you. For me, I know that it was a resounding gong of truth for me to understand that perfectionism is fear. And why would I want to live my life in fear? So my team, my woman, hopefully my children sense when I'm in perfectionism, and that's why we all grow together. Next is fire, the drive and the burnout. She pointed out that I have this grand trine of fire in my chart. Now, I don't know exactly what that means. She does. And she told me, Josh, your energy is endless until you ignore your limits. Okay, Debra, so if my energy is endless until I ignore my limits, what does that really mean? What does that give me? Well, fire with my astrological sign makeup gives me purpose and momentum, but without balance, it becomes urgency and exhaustion. Here's how this is played out for me, especially somebody who is a Taurus and who has this certain astrological recipe. My energy is endless until I overcommit, until my boundaries are so porous that I say yes to my team, yes to my family, yes to my friends. But guess who I forgot to say yes to? I forgot to say yes to Josh. Do you deal with this? Do you ever say yes to everyone else and your fire is completely burned out? Well, that's actually the whole point of using your astrology to understand your 4E, specifically this component of fire. I can be driven, but I also know when to stop the car. Because if I don't know when to stop the car and I look at the gas tank and it's empty and one of my friends calls me and says, can you do this thing for me? I'm just going to be like, hey, sorry, not sorry. I don't have any more gas in the tank. Can we do it at a different time? Really what fire teaches me is about boundaries. And I believe we all can learn from this because when we don't have boundaries, we absolutely get burned out. Next is air. This is a big one because I get in my head, I don't know if you do, thoughts versus overthinking. Air or wind is creativity and clarity until it gets stuck in endless loops of overthinking and self-doubt. Self-doubt. Think about that. Self. I like to use capital S-E-L-F. Capital S-E-L-F. When I am whole in myself, I may have little flutters of doubt here and there, but the only time that doubt is going to attach to my psyche is if I feed it energy and make it real. Let me say that again. The only time that I'm going to have doubt be real is if I feed it energy. It's one thing to experience doubt. It's another thing to do 15 years of therapy on why you have self-doubt. From a language perspective, and also from an overthinking perspective, since we're on the air element in Debra's model, if air is creativity and clarity, if it gets stuck and the air of creativity and clarity can't move, it is absolutely no doubt that you're going to be in self-doubt. There's no doubt you'll be in self-doubt if you watch yourself overthinking. But the key is that if you watch yourself overthinking, you can watch yourself overthink and then just simply choose to stop thinking. It's only when you're stuck in the overthinking and you're not watching your thinking that you get stuck in the overthinking. Are you feeling me? Are you with me? The loops of overthinking and self-doubt only happen when you forget that you're the watcher. When you forget that you're the one creating the whole thing, you're the player and the programmer at the same time, you're the one who's in your air element. These are the people, you ever met with them in public or you have a friend like this? And they just go, well, I'm going to kind of sort of do that thing and I might show up and maybe I'll be there and it kind of might feel like this. They're also airheads. They're called airheads for a reason. It's because they need more earth. They get to go through this 4E process with Debra, one of her practitioners, and overlay their astrology on there so they understand their behavioral proclivities. When you understand your behavioral proclivities, self-doubt and overthinking happen much, much less. Because it really points to my favorite one, the last one, and that is water. Water, it's on the screen right now. Sensitivity versus suppression. Debra told me something very profound. She said, Josh, you feel everything, but you've trained yourself to not show it. Feel everything, but I've trained myself to not show it. I would say yes and no. When I'm in my lower half, my lower self, and I'm in denial or I'm in shame or I'm trying to hide, yeah, I definitely feel a lot. And I feel like if I show it in those moments, that somehow I'm going to be perceived as weak. But water is intuition and empathy. Water is intuition and empathy. It's on the screen right now. It's the podcast logo. It's the upside down triangle. It's the chalice of renewal that we teach in the life method. Water is intuition and empathy, but if it's unacknowledged, it becomes numbness or resentment. Whatever you don't feel becomes something that potentially creates resent. Think about it. What is resentment? Resentment is a boundary or a request that is not being honored by self or others. That's all a resentment really is. But when I hold on to a hot coal and I'm squeezing that hot coal of resentment because I haven't understood my water element and I'm suppressing my sensitivity, I'm suppressing the request or the desire for my boundary to be upheld with self or other, then eventually I'm going to have to numb. Eventually there's alcohol, there's porn, there's overworking, there's social media. Really, as a society, I feel like we all deserve 50 to 60% more water. But here's the thing. Just because you feel it does not always mean that you can heal it. It doesn't. Just because you feel something does not mean that it's 100% going to be healed. This is the recipe for healing that starts with water. However, the air, the fire, and the earth must all be in the batter. If you want to bake a cake of healing, you've got to have all four elements. Okay, let's get into the more astrological pieces of my reading with Debra. She called my Scorpio moon. So I have a Scorpio moon, which there's 3 elements of your astrology besides just your actual one. Debra called my Scorpio moon out instantly. She said, you feel deeply, but sometimes you hide it. And for you, Josh, it's important to cut energetic lines from people in your life at least once a week to maintain sovereignty. When I heard that, I was like, oh my God. I don't know if you know this, but when you go into ayahuasca ceremonies, you can have people attach cords to you. And this happened to me. I was down at a place in Costa Rica. The space was not being held with sacredness. And I had an attachment. I had an entity. And I remember when I came back and I was going through massive OCD, I wouldn't wish the pain that I had on anyone. I met with Paul Chek, who is a mentor and a spirit guide medicine man. And he showed me this process of how to cut the cords of other people's energy from my somatic, from myself. And it changed my whole life because there are still days where I can sense other people's energy cords and hooks have been locked into me. And so what I do is I just take myself through this specific process that Paul shared with me. So when she told me that, it was just this beautiful reminder, because I have a Scorpio moon, because I feel so deep, it's important for me on an epigenetic level to clear the chamber, to go out and move energy and cut cords, just like it is for you if this resonates. Next, she talked about my rising. Now, we talked about the moon, which is my Scorpio. Debra pointed out my Virgo rising and she said, you hide behind perfection to avoid being seen. If I'm in my shadow, you betcha. Because look, Virgo energy can be amazing for service and detail. It's the part of us, the Virgo, that is great at organizing, great at executing, great at putting things in boxes and labeling them. But it also can hold us back when perfectionism becomes a shield to hide behind. I didn't honestly realize how my perfectionism was keeping me from showing up fully in my work and relationships. But what was that all about? It was fear of judgment. It was fear of judgment. No matter who we are, no matter what you've been through, wherever you want to go, you're still taking all of you with you. And that includes all the parts of you that have residue that are connected to the past. Check out this clip from Debra talking about human relationships and why they are so challenging, especially when it comes to astrology.
So what is the hardest lesson on planet Earth, according to astrology? Marriage, partnership, friendships, business partners, and commitments. That's the hardest thing we can do down here. Can we stay loyal? Can we listen to the other? Can we step over our egos? Can we really care about the other? That's what the human condition, that's 101, why we're here. You meet people, all your first love and your first husband and that stupid girl and that stupid guy, that's all karma. Those are people you had some agreement with to come in and learn from.
All right, so you heard Debra share. I want you to know that astrology is a map. It's not your fate. Astrology didn't give me all the answers. It just gave me greater permission to be who I am. Debra showed me that astrology isn't about predicting your future per se. It's about understanding why you do the things you do and what's really holding you back. Too often, I think people see the charts and they go, this is just how I am. This is just who I am. But the truth is, astrology is a tool for awareness, not a death sentence. So what does the 4E process look like for you? I think of it as a blueprint for transformation. The most important lesson that I learned is the power of integrating all of these four elements, not just living in one. You don't have to be stuck in one element of yourself. By understanding that you are not stuck, you are not broken, you can understand then your astrological blueprint can create a super long lasting change, but only if you're willing to act. Most people ignore the parts of themselves that they don't know because they don't understand how to channel their energy, because they don't know how to practice energetic hygiene through these four elements. My chart showed me where I was playing small. My chart shows me where I can stand in my full power. So I want you to practice your element. Let me know in the comments below, from the earth of groundedness, from the fire of action, from the air of expression, or the water of emotion. What is a daily ritual where you can touch all four of these elements and make sure that physical, emotional, spiritual, financial, and mental can be nourished by these four E's? Astrology is not fortune telling, y'all. It's a reflection of your potential. It's a reflection of your challenges and your path to self-realization. I mean, this session with Debra was not about fully recognizing the unconscious patterns that shape me. It's about recognizing all the unconscious patterns that shape us. Now it's up to you to look within and choose your path. Make sure you let us know in the comments below, which one of the four E's, the four elements, do you feel most drawn to? Which of the 5 sides of the pentagon, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and financial, do you believe practicing your 4E will start to feed? Share this podcast with somebody who has been really doubtful about astrology, especially coming from a guy like me who's very logical. I'm also very spiritual, but I have a healthy skeptic in me, if you know what I mean. I became a believer of astrology because I earned faith by sitting down with this world-class therapist, Debra Silverman, and feeling and trusting my somatic intelligence to know that what she was sharing wasn't some fortune teller with a crystal ball. What she was sharing was the truth of who I am. And it was the Trojan horse, the Trojan horse of higher consciousness. I hope you enjoyed this podcast today. Share this with somebody who doesn't believe in astrology, because now I've told you that I do. Until I see you again, I'm wishing you love, wellness, and most importantly, peace and power. You cannot have peace unless it comes from power. And by the way, you cannot have power unless you understand the 4 E's within yourself, and unless you see the map of how astrology can give you greater access to you. All right, y'all, we'll talk to you soon.